Oh, you know about my story.
I was about to ask you that, actually, when you were Reese's negative.
Yes.
Now, my younger sister is, I've got all the traits and the funny heart, but I'm Reese's positive.
Yeah, my daughter is as well, but she's got a heart murmur, and my nana had a heart condition.
Yes.
She died of heart failure. Heritage, through the French line, through to Beaumont, then through to Egypt, then through the Magdalene line, and through to Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Oh, here I am Deeming, which is from the first judges in Scotland that came over from the Danish. So one of my great-grandfathers was right the way through Europe, basically, from France through Spain, Germany, some Germanic, some Moroccan, then through into Africa and in Egypt, and right the way back. So I think I just... Because my mum's blue-eyed and red hair. Really? My mum's fae, yes.
My grandmother was blonde and blue-eyed, but the others were all quite dark, I think. I didn't know about her other brother who survived to live a long time, but I think we have black ancestors as well. So most of them dropped off the perch with the old heart.
Yes, I think it was 2015 that we first met.
Yeah, good. Anyway, could you say that again?
It was 2015 when we first met.
Good. Well, seemed to be a lot of noise in the room from some source or other.
An electrical source. Well, I wonder if it's from me.
It's very distracting.
Because I do give off a lot of...
That microphone's got a noise on it like hell.
Funny.
Right.
I do blow things, Jane. I blow energies and all sorts, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's not from me.
You got low energy.
No, I'm not surprised if it's not coming from me, the buzzing.
Well, there's a noise somewhere, and I want to have to change
probably my tinnitus.
No, it's not.
Do you want me to take this off?
No, don't do anything.
No.
Welcome, Dolly, to Bases. Now,
Thank you.
you have been on Bases before, and that's because you were, you had a little 15 minutes or whatever it is on stage to explain what was happening with you at that time, and that was that situation. And now we're in 2022, September. We've just had a change in Prime Minister, which is shocking, and a woman brought in today, this afternoon, and also I think announced by up in Scotland, Holyrood Castle. A lot of differences today. Maybe there's something significant in all that, and you're here right now, so this is all part of the climate. So, what brings you to tell your story since 2015? That's 6, 7, 8, 7 years?
Yeah, it's got to have been 7.
And you don't look a day older.
7 years.
Yeah.
And, well, I guess I've been on a little bit more of a journey in the 7 years that we've known each other. And not long after, in those 7 years, my life literally fell apart. And I do feel it was very, very much interfered with and manipulated by many hands. And I've also done some positive works and movements. But a lot of things have come into realisation, and I guess there's been a huge shift cosmically and on the planet that we are now beginning to see. So it's interesting you say how that we have now got females back in power again in this country. I think that's a good move.
Well, that's very good. It's all very nice. But you've shown me some photographs. You told me a scan of twin. You had a twin.
Yes.
And there's reasons behind that, but also when you were here last a couple of weeks ago, you did a scan. We did a scan with a thing called a zap checker, I think it's called. It's a crude name for a radio frequency. It's a crude name for a radio frequency device which measures in the mid frequency range. I've got a problem with this.
You got some problems.
Microphone. What the hell? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Is it me?
No,
or is
it's
it
not
you.
you. Anyway, okay, there's disruptive energies here.
Yes.
Or something. What's going on?
Yes.
We changed mics. Okay. So the point was that I used that meter, and it was this very special meter because it measures in the round about the medium frequency range, and that's to say MF, and that is very important in terms of what sort of I'm getting really distracted here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I can see that.
Come
that
on,
you are. I'm not
I
surprised
can't
that this.
hear a bloody word I'm saying.
Yeah, this often happens. So I'm thinking that we.
Let's get on with it. The purpose of it's the point about the zap checker. Getting back to this meter, and this is very important. We're filming this in my conservatory, and historically I've done things with the meters, with because of the nature of the double and triple glazed glass. This actually screens out a whole lot of I'm going to just do this. Is that running off me? We've got a little valve in the background here, and that little valve is actually on, but it's also the valve that we used at KISS AM for the medium wave transmitter way back in 1987. Just from a little bit of historical thing. That's the first time it's been on for a long time. Anyway, the point is that this zap checker meter is not possible to be commercially obtained anymore. You cannot buy it. You can see it in America. You can look at it on an online catalogue. You cannot get hold of it. They will not export it. And the reason for that is because it measures in a range where a lot of implants transmit on. And when you were last here, we did a scan at the Southgate Inn, which you recorded from your colleague who's running the other camera. Do you want to mention his name?
Yeah, Thomas.
Thomas.
Yeah, he's from SpaceLink TV.
Right, okay, SpaceLink TV.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the bottom line is that meter went bananas near his head and also your lower body. And that is very significant because that meter, not that particular meter, but a meter like it, same type, was used on Dave Marrow, and that was detecting a very large and moving implant, a multi-legged implant, which was in his back. And that's a long time ago, and a guy called Matt Todd did that scan, and this is going back 2008, 2009 or 11, just before I left Sky, and that was a big deal. And that was, I think, basis 7. I don't know, it could be basis 8. Dave Marrow is part of the Super Soldier group of people, and so we're connecting a meter which detects implants which were detected in you, and but no, sorry, it's wrong for me to say it was detecting implants. The meter simply detected RF signals, because that's what it does, broadcasting from your body and broadcasting from Thomas's Thomas's head.
Yes.
That's significant because the meter, that particular meter, operates in a range which is historically, or not historic, but is basically part of the what you would call the marine band. It's sort of roughly from about 2 megahertz up until roughly 30 megahertz or whatever, round about that range. And those frequencies have got the properties of long distance communication.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there are other meters which detect in the gigahertz range, which is what the cell phones and all that sort of stuff. But if you buy a commercial meter, there's a range where they don't like you measuring. It's actually cut out from the specifications of these meters. And that meter measures in that range, which they don't want you to measure in. That's the technical thing. And the point is, it was going off the bloody scale. Bang, bang, bang.
Yes.
Red and green lights all bang.
Yeah, and all the things that you've just mentioned, I can have a conduit too. So when I say conduit, I mean connection. So I can tune into radio waves. I can tune into mobiles. I can tune in to high frequency level and computers and crystalline energy.
Is that you sent me an ultrasound scan. Did it was from about 1978 or 6 or what?
It was from 2014.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, 2014.
So that did the scan include 2 fetuses or 1? What was the point of it?
There was 2. They couldn't confirm the second one. They said that I had internal bleeding, and when I asked what it was from, they didn't answer me and said it was from implantation when the baby attaches in the womb, and that wasn't the experience that I had with that.
Explain that again exactly. What do you mean it wasn't the experience? You're using veiled...
I had an experience before this loss of what I thought was a pregnancy. So I wasn't aware that I was carrying twins at the time. I was kind of aware my body was acting a little bit strangely and I was more hormonal, you know, but it was one night I had an experience in the dream state, in the astral world, and something came and felt or appeared to just do a snatching motion, and I felt something pop and woke up in a puddle of water. But in my dream state, there was a being there. So,
what was the being? What did it come over as?
The being, it was a dark figure. It was just a...
humanoid or what?
It was more like a shadow. It was more like a figure that just came and snatched. It did a snatching motion, but there's kind of like a strange build-up and catalogue of stories of how I ended up at the place that I did, and there's a lot. I connect with the secret space program behind it.
Take as long as you like to explain.
Okay, so I moved down to the southwest of England in 2006 and felt very compelled to be in this area and the area that I moved to. And I moved to the edge of Dartmoor and found a little house and settled and with my family, my 2 children and my partner, my ex-partner. And we'd begin, a series of events began to occur, of strange events. I'd already had previous strange events all my life, but more frequently strange events would happen. I think my children, something visited my children and scared my children one evening. My children described it as a being in a ball. And there was quite a lot of activity with it kicking off at the same time. TVs going off with strange language that I couldn't recognise, and it wasn't plugged in. It seemed paranormal, and there was a lot of paranormal activity surrounded in every house that I seem to move to or live in. And I almost was trying to escape it and outrun it by going from house to house, thinking I was haunted or something was haunting me and my dream space. And I began to research the things that was happening to me, and just randomly researching and beginning to connect with others that I could resemble with that was happening to me, because I wanted some answers.
Continue.
So I've frequently seen beings all of my life. It's
When you say that, could you try and describe what you've seen?
I've seen beings, one set of beings I call the plasma beings, and these beings communicated with me on a high level and told me that they were part of the inner earth that are called the Eanna, that we know as the Anunnaki, the elders. And I had a lot of connection with these beings, and I nicknamed them the plasma beings because I'd seen something by Drunvalo Melchizedek, and he was describing exactly what I'd seen. And these beings are like see-through auras, almost like jelly, but not ghosts. They're not ghosts. This is how I say plasma, some kind of translucent energy form. And I interacted with this being one day that appeared in my garden in the middle of the daytime. I was happily doing a day-to-day activity, and it appeared out of the blue. And these are some of the interactions that I have. They will just appear. It's not nighttime, or it's not, I don't call or channel or summon. It can happen at any time. And there's always a message or something, or some kind of intellect that I get from our interactions. So these beings that I began to see, the plasma beings, the house that I lived at the time, I saw blue spheres that had shot through my house. I'd got relatives that were staying with me, and they'd witnessed things glowing in the garden. My children had witnessed things, and it was a whole series of events between myself and my partner that were both extremely connected somehow in this astral world that we were.
So the point is, Dolly, you've come all this way from Cornwall, and I'm going to do this because it's actually a beautiful. It's actually a beautiful lady.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah, it is. I see now.
Yeah. So.
I see it.
Well, I think that's the whole point of the design.
Yeah.
So the point is, Dolly, you've come this distance. We've done these implant scans, or we've done a scan for what we believe may be internal radio frequency transmitting devices, right? Because
yes.
we've got to be, we don't know they're implants. We just think they might be because they're transmitting. And then we got onto your astral experiences with your children. How many children were these?
I've got 3 altogether.
But this is from your first.
Yeah, this is from my first relationship. Yeah.
Right. Were there any issues with that relationship which were connected to any other organisations or anything that you think would be relevant to this topic?
I think that we were connected, but no organisations that were connected.
What do you mean by connected? Previous lives or something like that?
I think that we were purposely placed together for child purposes.
what makes you think that, and what was special, if there was anything special? I mean, obviously, you know, your children are always special, you know, but what was extra special that is relevant to what we're talking about?
What is extra special to what we are talking about? That relationship came very abruptly to the end after a traumatic experience that I had that was secret space connected.
Okay. Secret space connected. What on earth are you talking about? Because it's a secret nobody would know, obviously.
It's a secret that nobody would know of. And what I'm talking about is humans being hijacked in their sleep. That the secret space program is not just a funky organisation that is run by the United States. It's something that's run globally by something way higher, above any government organisation that is on the planet.
Okay, well, I'm all ears. Tell us all about it.
I think that it's very much connected right directly back to the Anunnaki. I think it's connected to bloodlines, people of a certain bloodline. I think that there is elites and rulerships of certain bloodlines that want to wipe other bloodlines out so they can become more dominant and in rulership of the planet.
So can you be specific about which names, you know, what are we talking, families or anything you want to care to mention?
We're talking galactic families. This is far beyond anything on Earth that we are talking about.
So name them. Names, dates, details, DNA codes, the whole lot. I want
names.
It all.
So we're talking about the Anunnaki DNA. We're talking about the reptilian DNA that is connected through Enki. And we're talking about the bird tribe DNA that is connected through his brother Enlil. So both these bloodlines from star races that have been written about in history and recorded on tablets and cylinders and way older in caves and petroglyphs.
Are we talking Sumerian stuff, pre-Egyptian?
Sumerian, pre-Sumerian, and we're talking from the beginning, from their Atlantis point of view, perhaps. Because these, from what I've begun to understand by communicating with these beings, that the Eanna were part of Atlantis, part of the elders. And when the last floods occurred and the creation was started again to flourish, that they went underground.
Okay, when you said last floods, which floods, what dates, what are we looking at?
The biblical floods. So we're talking about the biblical floods, or back to then. But we can't put an accurate date on this because of the manipulation of the timelines by other organisations within societies and religions on the planet, wanting all to claim their part of the cake, if you like.
Now there is an assumption that time is linear, that it all goes in a straight line, and every year clicks on and it's always the same length, right back to whenever. But what are you saying?
Time doesn't exist. Time doesn't exist. It exists here on this earth for mankind's purpose.
In other words, to catch a train at midday.
It's for our purpose. It's for the function of humanity. It was created part of their system for the order and functional order of the planet, for timelines and for us recording.
So what do you call a timeline?
What do I call a timeline?
What would you understand as a timeline?
I would understand as a timeline as per 1,000 years as a timeline shifting, because it takes 1,000 years to forget. It can take 1,000 years to imprint, but 1,000 years to forget.
Why? Is there any reason for that?
Programming, control of humanity. And when we look at why we were created for control purposes, it was a slave race to be created for mining mineral purposes and to be functional.
Could you specify that? Are you referring to the Zachariah Sitchin type? And I don't like use that name.
No, not just Zachariah Sitchin. You know, you can look at people out there. Samuel Noah Kramer. He's an early 1900s, 1800s writer, and you know, look at people in fiction, and look at all the people that we've got there in history trying to teach us something, like Leonardo da Vinci and Joan of Arc and all these people, and Yeshua, Jesus, Buddha. All these people have made an impact and have a message for humanity.
Okay, so that's very grandiose. Let's get back to you mentioned the secret space program. So let's talk about that. So names, dates, locations, base names.
Base names.
Where have you been?
Where have I been? As a child, I did spend some time with a family member without revealing any names. Stayed at a base in Belgium. And I have no recollection, funnily, about that time. I know that I was there. It was a traumatic experience that we had getting there. The journey was horrendous. And
do you want to talk about that without it causing trouble?
It was a family experience that I wouldn't want to get them involved in, because they were quite important in their position in one of the armed forces. So I cannot.
Well, let's get as much round that as we can. Can you cut round that without losing it?
I can cut round it. So I used to stay with these people now and again. They were family relatives, and I would stay over as a child and spend a lot of time with them. And they were posted all over the world. And so I have spent time on military bases.
In the UK, Europe, or where?
In Europe.
If I said, I mean, one of the big German ones?
In Belgium.
In Belgium, right.
In Belgium.
And is that a US, shall we say, leased base? Or
I think it was, because I saw US officers there. That's one thing I do remember. But as far as I'm aware, it was a family visit. But some of the things that I've experienced as a child, kids don't get to experience.
In what way you're hedging? You're hedging again a little bit there. Try to be too specific if you can.
So I've had a deeper insight into life. I've had a humble beginning. I had very humble beginnings, came from a working class family in the Midlands, and my ET experiences started when I was 3. My first ones that I can remember and recall.
Okay, well, let's keep the secret space program in mind, but
which is secret space related now, I do believe, knowing what I know.
Explain.
Well, they use screening. So my first interaction, I met some beings, the Greys. I was 3 years old. I had a regression, and in this regression was taken back to an experience that I wanted to put an end to.
Right.
Because I lived on a 9th story block of flats when I was a child with my mother, and I would quite often go missing in the flat that we lived in, and my mother would be frantic, and
What age was this?
2, 3, I was
Yeah.
a toddler, and
So I mean, you could quite easily have fallen off the balcony.
I could have fallen out of the window. We're talking in the 1970s, and the window would be open and she would be frantic looking for me, and then I would appear in the oddest of places, I was told. And I have no memory of this, but kind of sort of a memory of it.
Okay, what is your kind of sort of?
My kind of sort of memory of it is that a dragon came through the window and tried to scare me when I was a child.
A big dragon,
A
you know, with big wings, like you see in the movies
well,
and
no,
things like what?
no. It like now I would think it would be a reptilian, but being 2 years old, I would have seen it as a dragon.
Yeah, the big teeth and a scary
big teeth and quite scary, and you know, being a small child, I was terrified.
Was it blowing flames out of its nostrils or what?
No.
Well, I want to figure out whether
Be
it's a cartoon
serious.
character or something.
No.
Or is it
So we're talking, I'm thinking reptilian. I'm thinking a reptilian connection. But this reptilian would then appear as a grey.
that sort of things happen. I mean, that's relatively...
And they would change. They would literally... when I wasn't scared of it, it changed into a tiny, weeny little grey, no bigger than myself. And I do remember some kind of floating, and remember looking down and thinking, that's I. But I'd have been 2 or 3. So I'd have other experiences that felt like I was slipping through some kind of sand. It felt like. Not a comfortable feeling.
So when you said you're slipping through some kind of sand, was this in a desert where there was sand or what?
No. It's a feeling in the body, but I've now learnt to discover that that is astral projection and astral travel. That is the soul leaving the body.
And who explained that to you?
Nobody.
So where did this information come from?
It has come from myself, and I have this ability where I can call up my own records. Some people call them the Akashic records, some people call them their blueprints, their records, their DNA. I can call this
What are these
up.
records like? Are they big rolls of paper with candle wax seals and what? I mean, where are these?
So these are
records?
written in light language. This is you're talking now quantum physics, you know, something way beyond what we understand.
Well, what do you...
On
and
a
the only
soul
other person I've
essence
heard
level.
talk about light language is Andrea Faust. And she's a therapist and does all sorts of things, Pleiadian, and talks all about light language and things like that. Is what you know about what she's done and what you're talking about, is that the same?
Kind of. I see light language in kind of a blueprint kind of way. So I've worked with Star Family in an astral interaction levels where we've worked through codes and symbols of some kind of one, a physical language, 2, a written language, and 3, a language that is invisible and unspoken by the human tongue, as far as I'm aware. So you're talking like the light language of creation.
So the light language of creation, but I mean, is that spoken with its human tongue, so it can be pronounced by a human being?
It can be sounded, and it can be, but not many humans will understand it. And it's only now, because we're beginning to shift into this age of deeper cosmic enlightenment, we've gone through the doorways of no return, that you will learn more and more about light language.
Okay.
Intellectually, with technology and things.
Is this a sort of singing thing or what? Or is it, when you call it light language, is there any examples where you could get so we understand?
It's all around us. Light language is all around us, and it's accessible. But we have to kind of unlock keys within ourselves.
How would you convey that to somebody who, is it the way of singing or what?
No, not a way of singing. It can be for that person. It's however it comes out in that individual. But for me, it's not singing. So I can see things in trees, for instance. I can see them in their aura form. I can see light in trees. I can see a language in medicine. And
Is this like a glowing, like an extra layer?
a little bit. It's like having a little bit of an extra layer on the world, if you like. An insight into the veil where you can dip in and out.
Okay, secret space program. Well, let's stick to that, and then move either side of that.
Okay.
What are you talking about, the secret space program?
As I was trying to unravel a few of the experiences that were happening to me, I wasn't aware of the secret space program when until somebody else told me that, oh, that sounds secret space program related. And I totally didn't put a connection together until I was then aware. So, in a way, I kind of not regret, but I kind of remember in a joking but meaning way saying, oh, if they want to visit me, it's kind of okay. And now I think, be careful of what you actually say.
And also what you wish for.
Because of the experiences that came with it. Some were very traumatic. Some were quite amusing and interesting. So,
okay. Such as, explain.
Such as
details.
So details. Well, my first understanding of them was I was trying to figure out who was chasing me in my sleep, and why I was being chased by men, groups of men that all looked the same, that were in outfits that looked like they were military, and I knew that they were looking for me. And literally in my astral body, I had to use what I call as on my astral light body abilities, let's say.
Okay, so how do you know they were military? Did you see signs, insignia, any kind of markings, anything like that on any of these things?
They were kitted up. They were kitted up. They were looking for me. They were definitely kitted up.
And you talking about these super soldiers with the, with all the stuff around them and the big guns and all that?
They weren't big guns. That's the thing. They weren't. It sounds comical, but they were like galactic guns, these little, and I had...
You talking Star Trek here or what?
Something
Is there any
Star
TV
Trek-y.
series where you could identify where that was?
Yeah, I would say Star Trek-y. I mean, I've never sat down and
Are you talking
watched
Mark
the
1 Star Trek or
Stargate
what?
stuff, but when I explain it, a lot of people say, oh, that sounds a bit... so it was just a gun, something I stole. I didn't want to be part of whatever they were part of. I know I was trying to get away from them, and I wanted to get away from them because of some of the things that I was doing in my dream state.
Well, what were you doing in your dream state?
I had interactions of that I was on Mars, in a bar on Mars.
You were in a bar
on Mars.
On Mars.
As a dancer.
So this was a Martian bar.
A Martian bar.
And did they sell Mars bars on the Martian bar on Mars?
Who knows? But it, you know, I was a dancer in my
okay, we've got Total Recall, right? We've got the movie Total Recall.
In a very erotic.
Yeah. So you're a pole dancer or something?
And
Stripper.
other things.
Okay. Were you doing pornography here or what? I mean, is it strippers? I mean, let's get...
I just
if it's good enough for Battlestar Galactica...
I remember a lot of erotic sexual content.
And in this, I'm trying to use some imagery here which would help people visualize what you're talking about. Are we talking about a little bit from the Battlestar Galactica remake, where the commanders were in, you know, where strip clubs or whatever? Are we talking
There's
about?
People in there.
Are we
watching.
talking Total Recall?
I'm not sure. I'm aware that I'm there. I'm dancing. I'm doing what I do. I'm in and I'm out.
Is this a screen memory or some kind of memory from you doing something here on Earth, or what? I mean, why Mars?
No. Because it's red and it's dusty and we don't go out and it's built in and it's...
So, if you did the movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know, a sort of camp like that, what would it look like? Can you describe it?
I've just got snippets. This is the thing. Everything is screened and I remember bits. I take bits with me.
I'm looking for things like, what were the chairs like? What sort of lighting was it like?
I have no idea. So we're talking a dark setting.
A dark setting?
A dark setting, but I'm aware of that I'm in space.
I mean, were the tables or chairs or
yeah,
other
tables,
people?
chairs, people.
Well, what were the tables like? I mean, what would they look like? Was it so continuous?
It's almost like built in. I've been in some craft that are almost moulded. It's like it's hard to explain. Everything fits into everything.
Just explain one thing, a chair or a door or a light switch.
It fits into its surroundings.
Any kind of colour, texture, height of the ceilings?
I've got lots of reds. I've got lots of just experiences.
Did you have round doors like a submarine
music.
or?
Not sure. I've got no memories of anything of looking around like that apart from other craft that I've been in and seen and looked around and seen different things, but not in that kind of setting.
Well, explain all that. Describe it.
So, other crafts that I've been in crafts that are very, almost like, blue shining inside. It's like a blue light that
Are
almost...
we talking about this thing like electric blue?
It's
or
like a sedative blue. It's like a sedative blue that keeps you in a very, very calm setting. It's everything molds into everything. And the conversation that I had with this being when I was there said to me that this, because I was amazed with the craft and like, wow, what is this? What am I in? And they were trying to explain that I was in a craft, but it wasn't like anything that they'd seen before. That this was new craft that they were bringing, and when humanity was ready, that everybody would see these craft. So it was almost in like we were having a conversation of talking about things that were about to be coming to Earth.
Right.
And it was almost as though I was having an in-depth joking conversation of, if they wondered what we had back then, wait till they see what we've got now.
And what did what did you have then?
I'm not sure what they had then. I can only go on history. And I think what they found and what they already know about. And I think that they've found ancient flying machines, such as Vimanas.
Yeah,
and I think that they have discovered stargates which are teleportation.
Are you referring to Stargates out of like the movies, Stargate,
I've
or
never
what?
seen it.
Right.
My ex has seen it, and Thomas has seen it. I've not.
You're
It
talking
has
jump
to grip
gates
me.
or what? You just go into a room and you can boom or what?
Hmm?
You just go into a room and you just suddenly evaporate and you're somewhere else, or what?
Most of it is done through sleep state. So I've had some interactions that have been sleep state, but I've had interactions where I've been awake. So I'm very aware of that they can slip you in and out of your body like an avatar.
Like in the movie.
Like in the movie, it's not too far-fetched. They can literally slip you in and out. And they were very aware of this in the Nazi programs.
I mean, if you were slipped in and out of a body, when you left it, would it just be like a cast-off piece of, you know, a tunic or something like that? Or
They can stick you anywhere.
such as?
Anywhere.
Yeah, but what such as?
Anywhere. Anywhere, any planet. Every planet is a resourceful planet.
That they know of?
Anywhere. They know.
So that you go
There's
through
no
like a
human
portal,
being.
like in the, I'm again using...
There's no human being on the planet that is left out of the secret space program. Some will remember it, some won't. Some of us fight against it, and this is what I found out. I was part of some kind of breakaway where I didn't want to be part of it, but still, there's no escape. There's no escape. They've made that aware that there's no escape for me. They've played with my life, they've played with my bank account, they've played with my relationships. You know?
Explain. Such as, you played with your life, you played with your relationship. Which relationship?
My ex-relationship was very, as I said, I do believe a lot of that was, there was a lot of alien sightings, there was UFO sightings in that relationship. Everything was strange in that relationship and paranormal. My last child with that person was a strange experience that, you know, there was a twin. And
Now, how do you know that if you didn't see the second baby? I mean, what?
I think
did you?
I just know. I think I just knew. I think my body felt it, and I had some kind of miscarriage, and my body did give the signs for a miscarriage, and I bled for 5 months through that pregnancy. And I
So
had,
what age was the baby taken, or whatever was taken?
I was 38, it was my last pregnancy, and the baby was taken at about between 10 and 14 weeks. So that would have been quite well.
And was the MRI scan, just to go over that again, taken at that time?
Yes.
To confirm that you had a second child or not?
They didn't want to confirm. They said that they couldn't. I asked them why I was bleeding, and they just couldn't. Nobody had any answers.
And what were all the, what about the shifty-eyed syndrome? People avoiding things and looking at the other way?
Yeah, there were people talking. They were just not listening to what I was saying. Nobody seemed to be listening to what I was saying.
Were you there
And I
voluntarily,
kept
or were you under guard or anything like that?
I was there voluntarily. First of all, they told me not to come in because they said it sounded like I had a miscarriage, and just to let nature take its course. And then they asked me to call in the morning, and I went in the morning and went in for a scan, and then it was revealed that there was still a child there, but there was this other empty
So there was
sac.
there was a void in your womb which would have contained something else.
Yes.
And did you see a before and after scan on that?
No, I didn't.
Just a before scan.
That was it.
The one that you're talking about
scan.
that you showed, is that after or before?
After. That is the only scan I saw of that pregnancy at the very beginning.
And they wouldn't give you, or did you ask in the first place to get the pictures or anything like that? Could you ask for those now?
I did get the pictures. I had a copy, but those pictures have since disappeared. And I've got the copy. That's the only thing I've got. But I could get a copy from my records.
Still, I mean, it's still physically available.
It should be. I mean, it was
Well, it may not
hospital,
be, I
right?
don't know. Yeah, well,
it should be. I'm thinking medical. It would be. Perhaps they.
I mean, could you get scans of your other?
Yes.
And is it worthwhile getting those analysed by somebody to check if there's any kind of difference or any advice that people would be able to tell that there was something odd going here?
Yeah, I did have a scan of my daughter, but she looks like an alien on there. So.
Oh, the old sort of, your daughter looks like an alien problem?
Yeah, she does look like one, yeah.
And which alien does she look like?
She looks like a grey on the scan. She does, but she's not, as far as I'm aware.
Right. And? I mean, where does this take us? Does it take us to your child is in the secret space program or what?
I'm not sure. I hope not. But all I can say is that after that, well, who knows what happened to that child? I have...
What do you mean, who knows? This is the child that you've lost or
yeah, and where did
away?
that child go? Because it was a strange experience I had with it. Was it a miscarriage? It was the experience that went with that loss of the child that kind of went hand in hand. And, you know, I have no evidence, only of a dream that I had when that happened. It felt like something was snatched. I wouldn't want to be portraying something out there that's dark, but it was dark. It was
so a dark entity took your baby in what do you call it? What's the term? It's not in vitro. It's
in vitro. Is it
straight out of your your womb?
Straight
something
out.
Took it, and there was no scars of what?
Snatched.
What was happening there?
There was no scars, just 5 months of bleeding. And I was very sore.
So 5 months of bleeding, and when does it finally stop?
When I was about 5 or 6 months, 7 months pregnant. Not long before I had my son prematurely.
And that was induced by the surgeons? Or
no,
what?
it was premature. He arrived 2 months early.
And how was the child at the time?
He was premature, but extremely... long and extremely awake and very full of energy. He is a different child.
So has he grown up to a normal person and all that?
He's a lovely, he's beautiful bundle of energy, what I would describe as a starseed child.
Now, what aspects of a starseed child I mean, you sort of, what makes you think, oh, that must be a starseed child? Why did all that? Why all that?
He's very older beyond his years. We've had conversations. I've had some very interesting conversations with him since he's been able to speak.
When did he learn how to speak?
Very early on.
What do you call early? Are you talking 1 or 2?
Yeah, 1, 2, he started speaking. Yeah.
And how good is his vocabulary at that
Very
time?
good. Too good. Very good.
When you say too good, what are you inferring, or what do you come out and say?
He's very old beyond his years. He will talk about things that he sees that we are watching, for instance, and he will have an understanding or a knowledge on it.
He'd have a, yeah.
And he will talk about the spiritual world and spirit quite interestingly.
In what way? Explain. Give us some examples.
So when he was very, very small, he explained to me how he saw me and washed in from the sky into my belly. Little things like that.
Could you? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Explain that.
So he was sitting on my lap.
Yeah.
And we were outside at the time, and he'd got a dummy in, and he was pointing, and I was like, and I took his dummy out, and he literally said, "Me up there," and whoosh, in there.
So he would be talking about coming back from up there, in.
Yeah, in. And we, you know.
Did he talk about the other son or the other brother?
He does, but only because I mention it, and he's heard me mention it, that, you know, I think there was a twin, and wow, what would I have done if there had have been two of you? Because he's a bundle of energy, I mean. So
you're convinced that the first one, there was a first one, and that was taken, and it's...
Yes.
And you haven't seen it since?
Yes. Yes.
Is that because it never existed?
Snatched. It maybe never did.
Was it born still, or what? Any information on that?
No information. Just a miscarriage, but they said implantation. They didn't say anything.
Now, in the procedures of miscarriages, are there legal procedures, and do you see a coffin, or is there any kind of...
There is if it goes past a certain point, but this, my body was told it would just absorb it naturally. So it's possible that if there was a twin, that the other child could have absorbed it.
Yeah.
Or it could have just broken down and...
What sort of size would it have been at that time when it went?
It would have been... Well, when I saw my little boy on the screen, he was a little stubber with the little arms and legs. Teeny weeny ones. Of a stub. Have a look yourself on the scan.
So let's get through this. I'm trying to get through. Stay on the secret space program. I mean, what evidence it was? Was it a space program? Did you see craft or bases with lots of other craft?
I've got memories of being in craft.
Explain them. Have you drawn them?
There's
or have you ever
so many. There's so many of where I'm just taken out of my sleep state and put into a scenario of where I've got to either fight or I've got to rescue people.
What do you mean you're put into this situation? Are you in another person or entity's body or being?
It's myself, but like I'm not myself. It's like I'm myself, but I'm not myself. It's like I am, but I'm someone else when I'm asleep. And I have got memories of being took up to a craft. I have got memories of them intervening in my dream and me asking them that why on earth are you intervening at this point? And they said that we had to. There was only a certain point that they could come in and grab me, and they'd set a scenario up and kind of knew that I would go for that scenario. So they kind of, a little bit matrixy, a little bit kind of, where you are placed into situations where they know that you will react. And literally...
Okay, explain the situation and what do you mean by literally?
Okay, so in dream state that felt very, very real. It's not like your normal dream. So we have normal dreaming where you can have your normal dreams. These are dreams that feel like that they're not normal, that you're awake, that you are physically awake, that you're somewhere else, that you just go with it because you may be asleep, right? So you just go with it because it's too bizarre. Okay. So you must be asleep.
I mean, you were going to a different planet with big dinosaurs or aliens.
No, I've
or
never,
what?
I've
Or-
never seen anything like
or
that.
is it all like the Sahara
I've
Desert?
no,
or
I've
the
never
Gobi Desert or
seen.
whatever?
No, I've never seen creatures or giant creatures I've seen beings. I've interacted with beings. I've seen craft and beings.
And what does the craft look like? Anything like Billy Meyer or any kind of those things?
An external point of view, the only craft that I've seen a few that are glowing shapes, spheres, very much like this.
Yeah.
A sphere. But I've also been taught to drive a craft that is also like that is part of us.
What do you mean part of us? Like an orb of light or something like that?
It's our
or a
light
football?
body vehicle that every human being has access to. And most of us use it when we are asleep, in sleep state.
The Merkaba or what?
The Merkaba is a light body vehicle. You can move through
What do you mean you can move, but you just move the craft? You're in it, or
you can
what?
move the craft. It's done by your body and frequency. It connects to you on a really deep crystalline frequency level. You operate this by mind and thought, and you can grow it or you can shrink it. Some of the craft that we see out there, I believe, are human beings that have
I mean, are they Arcturian or
activated.
Pleiadian or what? Or Draco? Where? I mean, how do you know?
Depending which is their star family race of origin, and this is something that every human has access to if they know how to activate it and access it.
And how would somebody know they could do that, or how would somebody know that? Oh well, I think I could do it, but I could need some help with it. Or I mean, who would you go? Who would you call?
Your higher self is the only way I can describe this. Is that it is a very deep understanding within yourself that you have to activate on an individual level that is unique to you, and your blueprints and codes and cellular memories, RNA, DNA.
Okay, Dolly, we were talking about secret space program and and your astral travels and stuff. Okay, so when we say we have a little bit of a break, what do you mean by astral travels? I mean, are we talking about something which is in your imagination, or what? I'm not getting very good descriptions here. It's all a bit sort of up in the air. And also, well, let's just stick to that. Let's try and work our way around the so-called astral travel.
Okay, so astral travel has been hijacked, and they use this in the secret space program. A lot of it is hijacking certain individuals, if you like, people of interest, in their sleep state, and using them for different purposes.
So how does one know
for their abilities?
You've been taken in astral travel?
I would say down to the overall experience of it being far different from dream and feeling more real, as in a reality, and physical signs. I've woken up with a lot of physical injuries.
Okay, well
that I had to have checked out.
That's something we can actually, understand and deal with. Okay. So, do you have any images or evidence of any of these so-called astral travels?
My last experience that's connected to me, many of the experiences that I've had, I've been to the GP with, and you know. They diagnose it as, oh, it's fibromyalgia, and I don't think it is.
Now, what is that in terms? Okay, what is fibromyalgia, and what did you suffer from?
Fibromyalgia is an attack of the nervous system. So it attacks all the nerves, especially in the back, and it can cause fatigue and tiredness, and can affect your life.
Is that like from measles or something, or what?
Pardon?
From measles or some other thing?
It's usually brought on through trauma or traumatic experiences.
Yeah.
So this is what they say, that it's connected to the body and the nervous system and the light body, our electrical circuits.
Okay. What do you... I'm trying to get down to your actual alleged secret space program experience and what you've done in it. Why are you saying it's secret space program when it simply could be something from a bit of a nervous condition?
I can't have children anymore. This ended abruptly when my last relationship ended. On that very day.
Yeah.
When that relationship ended after a few series of strange events and some interactions in sleep state. One that was quite traumatic.
Okay, explain that. Sleep state, traumatic, you just had a bad night, you've been suffering from some kind of nightmares. That's not nice, but it ain't secret space program. One second. This is really driving me around the bend, this fucking thing. Oh. I don't know what the hell's in that. We're still rolling, and I'm going to plug this in again and do this, and I'm sitting on something which is producing a lot of noise as well. Quiet, just do this. So you're talking about the secret space program, and you're talking about experiences which are like disturbed sleep. What else are you talking about?
Not just disturbed sleep, about physical conditions that have occurred from those interactions. I had a very disturbed experience in sleep state where I felt that it was again awake. In fact, I did wake up, and I wasn't where I'd gone to sleep, and I was on a hospital bed, and I was pinned down. Okay,
hospital bed.
Yes.
What exactly do you mean by? Could you describe the hospital? I'm looking for colours. I'm looking for light switches. Any kind of a detail that you can give me.
This room was what I now know as a screened room. Okay, it was a screened room which was created for the purpose of what it was being used for.
And exactly what was that?
They pinned me down on a bed, and at the time when
What do you mean they pinned you down? Who pinned you down?
Two people, a doctor and a nurse.
And did they have any symbols or any identification?
What were they like? Actually looked quite... The one doctor was just a woman with short black hair. She'd got a white coat on. The other nurse, the one that was with her, was the one that actually alerted me that the situation that I was in wasn't right. There was something wrong with the situation that I was in, and I then began to scream and ask where I was.
Now, how did she alert you, and what was the situation she was
She
referring
looked
to?
very, very almost comical looking, of the how you would portray a nurse, as in the white hat with the red cross, and she was a good-looking woman, and she'd got bright red lipstick on, and she just didn't fit. And
When
I
you
actually
say,
said to her, "You're not a
bright
nurse."
red lipstick, are we talking 1945 type fashion?
Yes.
Identify the makeup
Bright
and
red
the type.
and the hairstyle like that, and
Another like a movies, like a 50s movie or something.
Yeah, like 1950s character out of.
Some of you would have expected to see in a typical 50s Western or
Yes.
sci-fi or,
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
Because it's the style of uniform and when those uniforms were available that I'm looking for, and any other look to the way they tell any
Yes.
kind of artifacts or things that you
They
were in.
did. I saw a contraption, and that is when I began to freak out, because they told me that they needed to do a procedure, a minor procedure, and this object was shaped like a tool that they use when you go for a smear test, but the only difference was it had like little hooks and like some kind of something on it, and I automatically freaked out that they was not gonna use that on me, and they decided to jump on me and pin me down and inject me with something, which caused me concern because I felt really conscious and awake, and I was more concerned about what they were giving me in my hand, because I'm highly allergic to some drugs and things that I would have an anaphylactic. And I can remember being in that awake, asleep situation of, it felt like I was at the dentist, and I could only feel from my head. I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. And then I think I seemed to black out, and then I woke up and I was still on a hospital bed, but I was in a corridor. And
Can you describe I'm talking about the paintwork.
Green, like.
Did it have
yes.
I'm talking about an old look, bad look, or not
It
bad.
had more like a 1920s hospital, retro, early 1920s kind of.
Any other
Art
indication
Deco.
of anything like lights or fittings?
No, I was freaking out too
Switches
much.
anywhere?
I was
The
freaking
style
out.
of chairs?
I was freaking out. I wanted to get out of there. I was on a trolley. I managed on the trolley to straight away, I felt between my legs, and I'd got something that was inserted inside of me that had wires coming out of it.
And what were the wires attached to? And I mean, when you say wires, what sort of wires?
They were just.
I mean, I'm looking at the sort of wires that, for instance, we're able to use.
I didn't look. I just pulled it out. I pulled it out immediately, and I felt it pull out. I almost like ripped it out, if you like. And then when I woke up, it caused me to wake up instantly.
So this was in the dream state.
First of all, I questioned. I thought I was in an accident because I'd gone to sleep in my... I lived off-grid. And I lived in a field in the middle of nowhere. And that was part of the reason why I'd gone to live off-grid, is that I didn't want to be...
Now, the thing is, way back in 2015, I think you were describing that, and you were under attack and harassment for want of a better term, a gypsy-type family, or was that... or was that the owners or something of the? I think if I'm remembering, you were under a lot of harassment from the neighbour or something like that. No.
No. There was a bit of argument with the land, and
yeah, well, that's what I mean.
He was a Freemason. He was an ex-Freemason that was part of.
What do you mean ex-Freemason?
The occult. He said he was an ex-Freemason, and
in what way was he ex? Was he thrown out, excommunicated, or whatever they do?
I'm not sure. We never got that far in conversation. but I was made quite aware to me that he was an ex-Freemason and that he'd paid his dues, as he'd said, and that he was part of the occult side. And instantly I surrounded my home with mirrors and all kinds of things that I didn't want any kind of...
Why would
bad.
mirrors necessarily be better than whatever you...
I just wanted to reflect any kind of negative energy that was portrayed in my property. I've always had a natural ability of working with my own craft abilities.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want this person on my land at the time.
I mean, were you renting it or what?
Yes, I was renting it.
And
very sacred piece of land, energetically.
Did you can you recall when you came to bases way back in 2015? Did you mention any of this? And maybe we can dig that up later.
I'm not sure. I think we'd spoken about a few things, and I'd explained to you that my life has been so strange, and that I've had a series of multiple communications with different races, people on the planet, interesting people come into my world.
So you had these experiences before you actually talked at, you know, were these pre the were these before? When was it experiences? Was this
the
before
secret space program has never stopped.
So, I mean, when you appeared in 2015, had you been in the secret space program?
Yes.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And, yes, I knew people that were part of it. Now,
again, we're jumping around like a bunch of sheep here, or lambs. What we're talking about here is you've had this astral exposure in the hospital, right? You've described the nurse as something from the 1950s or that sort of style. And then you pulled this thing out of your womb. And when we went to the Southgate Inn and we did this little bit of an implant scan there, I think we discovered earlier before we went there that there were signals on this zap checker meter coming from your womb where that device had been. Is that the first time you've seen anything like that?
It's the first time I've seen anything on a scan, but I always knew. I had a feeling, and I've got this odd oblong grain rice that did turn into what they call a ganglion, and I was sent privately.
What do you mean you were sent privately? Explain that little thing with your tooth.
This is the odd thing. I'd been seeing my GP for this strange lump that had appeared that wasn't going away.
Was that at the same time as this?
Well, I'd noticed all the same time. It was the same time, and before I split with my ex, I had it since I was pregnant with my little boy and before. Right. So before I
Why did you split with your ex? And I'm going to suggest, was your ex your handler?
Yes, and he knew that.
So
and he told me our contract had ended.
And your contract had ended after something was taken from you, potentially?
Yes. When I could no longer have children, it was ended.
Right.
He told me it was ended.
In other words, you were... some people would suggest that was you're no longer used for breeding babies then.
Yes. And I knew that. And I knew that that's what they'd taken from me. But the funny thing is that I had, at the time when all this was going on, I actually went to the GP and under a specialist after and asked why was I prolifically bleeding because after this experience and I pulled that thing out, I bled for 18 days.
So
and
the thing is that were
went to see a
they not
specialist.
annoyed that you'd done that? I mean, was there anything after that?
Yeah, there were plenty of things after that. Like I said, my life completely
how did you
broke
get out of
down
the hospital
after.
if you're bleeding?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you've just pulled something from your
Yeah,
your
this
womb
was
and
in
you
dream
bleed.
state. So let's
Right.
go back to the dream state. So in this dream state that felt very, very real, I've pulled this thing out of me, and straight away, in my place where I am, it feels like I've dropped back into my body.
Right.
And when I got up, straight away I woke up screaming. My ex-partner heard me screaming. He came in.
So you were sleeping separately?
Yeah, we were sleeping separately at the time.
Was that because you were pregnant at the time?
No, I wasn't pregnant. It was after I had my son. It was just before the relationship ended.
Yeah.
We'd ended up not sleeping in the same place. And he literally jumped out of bed because he thought I'd fallen out of bed.
Right.
And I hadn't.
So
and
this,
I was
when you returned to your...
screaming.
Yeah.
And I was bleeding and screaming. And I asked straight away, did you hear them? Did you see them? And he said no, that he just heard a big
Now, when
bang.
you say that, is that was because you had many other instances?
Yes.
So he was
he'd
used to
seen
this sort of
them.
thing happening?
Yes, he'd seen them.
And what does he say he saw them as?
He's also seen beings. At the time we went through a series of interactions where it was every night for years, every night. 333, that's why I said the fourth kind is like my life, because it would be 333. Sometimes we would shoot upright in bed, look at each other and complete knockout. There would be interactions with beings that could come through walls, that could move you through walls. Beings that were coming through mirrors, beings that were visiting my children.
Can
they
you
were
describe
aware.
all these different beings, or were they all the same?
Yeah, no, different beings.
Well, describe them.
One being I demanded to see, and literally demanded, and I actually called upon higher powers of anything that was there, angelic or anything, to assist me, and demanded to see this being that was there. And I saw
What do you mean was there?
It was coming through the mirror, and it was trying to take us. It was taking us. It was putting us back. I have no idea. I just demanded to see whatever source was doing whatever they was doing in our sleep.
And what did they, I mean, describe them. We're not getting any description, but what's...
I saw a being I saw a being.
A grey, an octopus thing?
Yeah, I saw a grey, but it wasn't a
Finn
grey.
McCool, a leprechaun? Santa Claus?
It was a grey with blue eyes. It was a grey with eyes like ours. It wasn't a grey with the black that's over.
Was that like the movie? What's it called? Shaun of the... No, that's not Shaun of the Dead, the other one.
You're thinking of Paul.
Paul,
yes,
yeah.
A little bit. But this being's face was so old. Like very, very...
Really crinkly?
Crinkly, like elephant skin almost.
Was it a bit like the one in E.T.?
A little bit more. Really old. More. It looked ancient, really old.
Not E.T., yeah, the Close Encounters. No, the one with
I just
E.T.
felt
Phone Home.
A mix between all of those. Kind of grey, kind of E.T. looking, kind of, but not. And there's been, all I remember is the eyes being so blue.
I think the word Urs Gres or something has come. Have you heard of that term? Urs Gres or something?
No.
No, I don't think... okay.
No. And it was the eyes, and when I saw the eyes, you know, I kind of didn't kind of fear it anymore, because it had eyes that were not horrible to look in or anything like that. I could recognise what I was looking at,
did it
but I was
help
more
you,
shocked.
or did it...
It just disappeared. It just disappeared after that, and I woke up and just put it down to another interaction of amazing dream interaction.
So, what was the end of that experience, and then bring us into others?
The end of that experience is that a lot of books began to appear in my life that I wanted to read, and I've never read books. I've never been a reader as a child. I've been more creative and more along the lines of music and art and an active child, and books is something that I never picked up apart from religious books.
When you say religious books, what sort of things?
So from a child I had, I took religious education at school. I was lucky enough to be in a family that was multicultural, and I got time to spend time in a Muslim family.
Right.
So I had different perspectives.
What was your choice of faith? What was your...
Neither. I couldn't work it all out, and this was the question that I used to ask my mother quite a lot, and I wanted to know why I wasn't like all my friends that had been christened, and I wanted to know what was inside churches. So from a young age I actually did interact. I decided to take myself along to Sunday schools, youth clubs, spent a bit of time in the church.
I mean, there's several different denominations of so-called Protestantism and Catholic. What else are you?
My father was a Catholic, that I found out, and I can relate to a lot of the portrayal of the Catholic religion, and then I look at Christianity and I can relate to a lot of that.
Well,
I look at Muslim, and I look at Hindu, and I look at all of them. I think
the Roman Catholics would consider them to be Christian. Why are you putting a difference there?
Yeah, well, you know, the whole spin and how they ruined it and took it and obtained it.
Not saying anything controversial here, for sure, that's okay.
Yeah, you know, not saying anything controversial, but there's a lot of different hands that have had a play in the mix for humanity's history to be manipulated a little bit.
Well, let's just stick around where you're talking about these extraordinary experiences. We've had the pregnancy thing, and then we've had the other thing coming into the mirror, is that right? So what else?
So I've had them appear in my physical world. I've had strange interactions with people that have appeared, that know my name, that...
When you say they know, when you say they appeared, how did they appear? Was it in a situation, or you just brought into a situation, or what?
Just into a situation, and
such as an airport, a railway station.
I was at home. I was about to go out to take the children to school. I was in my car. My car wouldn't start. I live down a lane where you can't walk down unless that you're seen. And I lifted my head up, and there's a pair of feet standing by my car. And there's a man, and he knew me by name, and he asked me if there was a walkway at the back of my house where all these interactions had happened, and I was a bit confused.
Was the guy showing an interest in your car, and can you describe him? Did he have a hat on, anything?
No, he was very plainly dressed. He was normally dressed. He had cream trousers on, he had a jumper, a shirt, and I actually looked at his shoes and noticed his shoes. And
were they brown, pointed shoes? They
were brown shoes. He was dressed as an ordinary man.
Did he have the ornate sort of design on them?
He had the bluest eyes, and he asked if there was a walkway, and I told him where it was, and I looked directly at his shoes and told him he couldn't walk down there because it was muddy, and he told me not to worry about that. I looked at my children in the car bewildered, like, who is he, where's he come from? And then I asked the children, did you hear him say my name? Do I know him? Because I did look at him at first, because he said my name.
Right.
So I kind of looked at him, do I know you?
And where is this exactly going on?
This was in Devon.
Devon. Which town?
It was in a place called Blackawton, which is a very strange little place. And it was in the middle of a void. That is a very strange place.
What do you mean in the middle of a void?
I would say I was directly on a ley line.
Right.
So, and he disappeared.
Right.
He wasn't there.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. He disappeared.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a bizarre, because the children had seen him. I'd seen him. He'd spoken to me. But he was more friendly. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't horrible. I almost got the feeling he was just a visitor in this time and space.
Why was that? Because
I have
any
no
indication
idea.
on that which would indicate why he was from not where we were.
Probably because of the interactions that I was having at the time. So this was at the time where there was beings coming through the mirror. There was beings outside the house. I was seeing craft. People that were with me were seeing craft.
What did the craft look like?
Blue spheres of light used to shoot.
Like that round ball you got?
Like that round ball.
What's the round ball that you're doing anyway?
The round ball that I've got is just a crystal ball, and I brought it with me to show you.
Well, show us then, but remember...
I have no idea where it's gone.
Well, it's just gone right beside your hand there.
Oh, there it is. So this is kind of like...
And we're still remembering all the other ETs that you're talking about.
This is, yeah.
We're not getting enough detail
Grays basically educated me to work one of these.
Now, what is it?
This is what I'd call our light.
Looks slightly
sphere.
silvered on one side.
It does. It's like polished in one side. It's a crystal ball. But it looks like an orb. And it looks like a light body as well.
Right.
And a lot of people see these when they see spirit. They see orbs.
Right.
And a lot of people see craft like these as well, that glow. And they can change colour. They can change frequency. They can change size.
Yeah.
According to the person, the individual and the body. And the reason why I say this is secret space related is because that I was trained to use one of these in a setting where I was on a craft with a lot of other individuals. I'm talking this experience was 15, 20 years ago. And we would call up a screen that was very much like what we're seeing in the movies now.
Right.
And it was brought up by your mind. And this screen connected to everything. So you are consciously connected to this screen and you work through it. So I can remember being in some kind of setting in dream state where this has occurred.
Right.
And I got taught to use one of these.
And what do you mean taught to use it?
Educated to use it. When I was ready enough, I was...
Okay.
You have to go
Well,
through...
we're coming close to the end of this little section, so what I want to do is you to concentrate on those other strange experiences of the other creatures and describe them in the final 12 minutes of this little part. You got them coming into through the mirrors or whatever, which you'd put up to protect you from other things.
It was in the house. It was a mirrored wardrobe. The mirrors was around my land when I lived on land. My life had completely took a turn.
What do you mean by the mirror?
The more I was interacting and trying to find out. So I'm going back to about 2011 here.
Right.
So the more I was trying to search for answers.
Yeah.
And the more I was trying to connect with people that could give me perhaps answers,
Yes.
the more I was being cut off from sources.
Right.
So series of events began to happen. I lost my home, I ended up homeless, my family ended up living...
Was that the Glastonbury thing, or there some place near
Yeah,
there?
yeah, it wasn't Glastonbury, it was down in Devon. It was a very, very weird, very weird place with a German connection. And
where's the Germans coming out here? Are we talking about secret underground alien base?
Each place that I go to seems to have a connection with either German people, a connection to people that work for organisations.
Such as what? The organisation.
The organisation. So I've known people that have worked for the ESA and NASA.
ESA, European Space Programme.
Yes, and NASA. In fact, when I had my complete nervous breakdown 5-6 years ago, I ended up staying on a piece of land overseas where I was safe for 8 months.
Right. And why were you safe? Safe from what? What danger?
I just felt protected. I felt that I was being protected in some way.
I mean, from, spirit guides, or
No.
the little people, or what?
No, from people that had hacked my phone, sent me death threats.
Those happy people who...
Those happy people.
You would have called yourself a TI, a targeted individual then?
Exactly. And I did have, when I come back to England, a government official appeared at my door for a couple of days until I let them in.
Right.
And had a conversation with them.
Having a conversation with them? What do you mean by having a conversation with them?
Well, they had a conversation with me and just said that my house was a house of interest.
And what does that...
And they tried to put it down as that they wanted to take statistics.
It was a house of interest. What do you mean by that?
I have no idea. That they said that the things that were
Skinwalker
going...
Ranch thing, or what?
They said that the things that were going on from my property were of interest.
Is that near Oakhampton or something?
No, it's in Devon.
Yeah.
It's in Devon. I don't want to give too much of that away because I don't want people on my doorstep.
Right. Well, that's okay. What are overriding experience have you had involving these sort of alien things or whatever after the circumstances of the baby thing and all that?
What overriding experiences?
Well, any, because that would lead up to, maybe we'll leave this for the next chat. I mean, what led up to your experiences, and was there a lead up?
Well, when they first started, I had a lot of negative ones. I had few negative experiences with the greys until I'd begun to know them a little bit better,
Which type of greys? They all come from all over the place, don't they?
They do, but I go with more of a Zeta. I do go
the original Zeta Reticuli.
I do go with more of that and resemble... as being from what I understand from them, a failing race, a biologically failing race that find our species of very high interest, and they work alongside other species out there in the cosmos, and they are just there for the genetic purposes of monitoring us and taking certain things like monitoring.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about scoop marks and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, like seeing how it's gone down the line from the beginning
behind,
and leaving things behind and little implants. So those are the guys that are more like that are the robotic medicals, if you like, that are sent out to do all the little bit
Right.
to do the testing.
So
the
that you're saying,
compatibility.
would you say that is part of a secret space terrestrial space program?
Yes, they are all connected. They all work hand in hand together.
What sort of size of space are we talking about here?
Oh, it's huge. You're talking about the federations. They are highly involved. They are all involved, from my understanding, from what I've learned about them. They're all races.
Such as? We're talking about the tall whites here. What?
Yeah, all of them are involved on some
the greys
level.
or whatever.
Yeah, they're all involved on some level for something. And the guys at the top, they know this. It's only now that it's coming out that UFOs have been released, that now, hey, they're coming forward with it. These things are real. We are seeing these things. So you will get more and more people like me that will come forward with our stories.
Do you know other people who in England or wherever?
Yes. I know people in England, Australia, America, all over the world.
Well, there's a lot of restrictions on travel and stuff, people trying to get out of Australia and all that. But this is being recorded September 2022. So finally, just as we get the last couple of minutes, just you described all these alien things, but you haven't really gone into the detail apart from, I think, a couple. Is there any more types that you've experienced that you would like to describe in any way?
The plasma beings. The plasma beings were the most interesting because I'm still interacting with those that are working with me at the moment.
I mean, how do you meet them when you say the plasma?
When I physically saw them, they made themselves known to me. I saw them in interacting in dream state through an astral visit where I had gone somewhere that was very active with craft and beings and all kinds of beings that were flying, and a really
like the Indian texts, the Varmanas, or no, you would mention that.
These beings, some of these beings were flying with wings, physical and physically flying.
I mean, you started this off, you were talking about unicorns and stuff, something like that.
Not unicorns.
No, but I mean, this is an asexual being. Is almost like the Baphomet in terms.
I have seen some that are neither sex. I have seen one that was a spirit guide that came to meet me.
Some people would argue the spirit guides are merely the jinn that attach to humans or whatever. Is there a separation, a difference there or what?
The jinn is very real. Demons are very real in the demonic world. I try to, as best as I can, like every other person, disattach myself from any kind of energies that go that way. But I have been physically saved by people in the real world that are from certain organisations.
Well, we'll leave that for the next little part. We'll have a tea break and maybe change with the lights begin to fade here, so we might do something else. Okay, Dollie, I think we've managed to get up to basis 128 or something on this, but I've forgotten what the number is. But anyway, the point is that we have a potential rainstorm coming here. We're doing the third part of your first part here. And you did acting, or did you be the BBC or the media or something like that?
Yeah, I've done a lot over the years. I started from a young age, singing, dancing, theatre schools, and did a lot of training. Got the chance to get a scholarship, and sadly my parents didn't or couldn't afford it. So I was always there doing things within those kinds of areas, and I did beauty pageants and won a few. And
so basically you're in the show business side of things.
Yeah.
Now, I've interviewed people before like Misha Johnson and people like that, and they've been in show business. And she was part of an acting group or an acting family, an acting company in the States. But her, there were contracts, which this involved contracts. Can you tell me if your family were involved with contracts with any other kind of, shall we say, other kind of companies?
No. No. No.
So your father didn't. What I'm saying is that you were that some people in the acting profession have to do certain. They're involved with a contract which takes them into a business called MK Ultra
I was
or
more
MK Ultra.
headhunted. I was more headhunted, I think. When I was at school, from a small child, I would be segregated off from the other children and do tests on pieces of paper, which I've now found out that are IQ tests. And I would be placed into a music room and left alone for a good hour or so. And I would pick up instruments, and which is how I came to play the violin and get into music. And
So there's nobody else there?
No.
You just picked up whatever?
Yeah, I just picked up whatever instrument, and then they suggested it to my parents that they would like to put me forward for things on behalf of school through normal education.
The point about it is that in the acting profession, some parts or some, it involves people being contracted into MK Ultra type or Manchurian Candidate or Monarch type programming. Has any of that happened with you, or was that involved with any part of your family, or would you know about it anyway?
Yeah, with myself. I was placed into a house with 5 other individuals when I was 16, 17. It was a government programme that was placed. I was put into a placement scheme through a work.
Could you give me details of that? I mean, was this simply some kind of scholarship? Was you were talented or whatever?
I did acting, I did drama, I did song, I did dance. I'm a qualified dance teacher. I worked up to those grades. I did auditions for girl bands and all kinds of things.
What do you mean all kinds of things? Specify.
A lot of walk-on parts I did, theatre, a lot of extra work, a lot of theatre work, a lot of promotional. Could you identify
any films or anything that were...
I was in Doctors quite a lot. Is that ITV now?
Was it BBC or ITV?
Yeah, I think it was with the BBC. So I was with a casting agency. Yeah, I was.
Could you name the agency?
Yeah, I was with the Janet Howe casting agency at the time.
Right. So there's, I mean, we're not talking about anything at all inappropriate here.
No, no.
So you're just in the business, in the ordinary
Just in the business, but later I did get into the webcamming industry.
Right. Are you acting now pretending to be an MK Ultra type person and pretending to do anything?
Absolutely not. No.
And the other thing, while we're saying this, this is recorded for the Basis project, and it's going to go out on the internet in one of the YouTube or type platforms. Do you agree to that? Are you okay with that? Right.
Yep.
Right. And this is September the 5th, 2022. Okay. So, so what is the purpose? What do you wish to achieve by coming to make this recording? What do you want to say in this recording? And you want to make sure that gets onto the camera, because we could be hit by a rain shower. So do you want to get to the point and do like a 1, 2, 3, 4?
Well,
what do you want to get across right now?
What I want to get across right now is that there have been a lot of external forces that have manipulated and steered my life into certain directions, and I'm now free of that for a while.
Okay, steered your life into what directions, and please specify the details of what was involved in that.
So not being able to talk about things, not being able to speak about any of this, not being able to come forward with anything.
Well, this is now the opportunity to talk about it and come forward with it. So what is it?
Aliens toy with my life and they visit me. They've visited me all of my life, and I don't think they're going to stop visiting me.
What type of aliens? What was involved?
All kinds of aliens. So I've met reptilians, I've met greys, I've met some I call the plasma beings, who I now resemble with the Eanna.
The Eanna?
The Eanna. The Eanna.
And what's that?
So those are an ancient race of inner earth beings that are connected to our
And how do you
earth.
spell that word?
The A-N-A.
Okay. Explain what that is. What is the inner earth? What do you mean by that? Pocket dimensions or Adigartha?
All over the world there are tunnels that lead into the inner caverns of Earth. And from my understanding is that this is a real place where many extraterrestrial races function and have their bases from. There's many underground bases. There's many.
Okay. This is getting vague, and you could have picked this up from any other bases or read a book about it or seen it on the TV. What did you experience? What is your direct personal experience that you can tell us on this? What's your experience?
I've been in the tunnels. I've been in tunnels underground. I go in many of them. I research them. I go and find them.
And where do you find them, and what do they look like, and where do they go to and from?
There's lots of tunnels that are connected to mining tunnels, mining shafts. They're located all over the globe. They directly go right down into the caverns of inner earth. Many people get lost down there. Many people don't come back.
And how did you get which tunnel? Let's select one tunnel that you can remember going to, and where was it, and where did it go from and to?
I've been to some in Buckfastleigh. I've been to some on Dartmoor. I've been to some in Beer, down in Beer. Those run for 40 acres. We actually went quite far in there, and there's a huge Freemasonry connection with that particular underground
so
system.
who's we?
Myself, my husband, and the man that owned the caverns there.
And who was that person? You prepared to identify him or say anything?
Yeah, his name was Steve. I can't remember his last name.
He owns them?
He owns the caverns. He runs caretakes the caverns there. And he kindly took us in, and we managed to film it. So I do film and document a lot of what I go and research and look.
Where does that? Where can people see that? Which network or platform?
On my platform.
And
on
what
SpaceLink,
is your platform?
SpaceLink TV, and you can find me on YouTube as well. I put a lot of things on there.
Okay, tell us all about that, and how did it get started, and what are you doing with it now in 2022?
I've been part of it for a while, connected with my husband. It was my husband's to start with, and I started working with him about 8 years ago. And we made a few documentaries and films. And we've worked with some amazing people all over the planet, making documentaries. And
can you name some of the documentaries, and you know, where can people see them? And
they can find them on our channel on SpaceLink TV. I do believe they're on Billy Carson's channel as well, Forbidden Knowledge TV. They're out there. It's on Vimeo
if people wanted
to
see maybe 5 of them, would you be able to sort of give any idea, Of which ones?
There's one called Docuphobia, there's What If, and I did just take part in the Black Knight satellite. That was...
So let's go in reverse there. What is this Black Knight satellite from your perspective on that documentary?
My perspective, on that documentary, I actually got to spend time with Duncan Lunan, who was the guy who decoded the message that came from signals.
Okay, a message came from signals. Which message and what?
There were messages that were bounced back that had been received by Earth. I think Nikola Tesla, he first touched up on these radio frequency messages. And I think it was Duncan Lunan picked them back up in the 60s, and something was written in Time magazine. And
I mean, this guy Duncan Lunan, I mean, what were they recorded on? Wax discs or acetate records? Or
he is an astronomer, so he worked with the universities up there, and he was decoding this, and he's a really interesting guy.
Was this in the war, or World
No,
War II?
no. This is in the 60s, 70s. He did this. And decoded this message.
So this was on computer tape or what? How was it restored?
I think it was from radio frequency messages that they'd collected the data from.
This would be in a field called radio astronomy.
Radio astronomy, exactly.
And is there any astronomical peer-reviewed material that you could look this up on?
I think there is, because he was actually assigned to build an aligned astronomical circle that aligned with the centre of the galaxy, and he...
I mean, are you talking about radio telescopes in California somewhere? Or,
no, this is up in Scotland. This is up at a place called Sighthill. In Scotland, and it was a stone circle, one of the first to be commissioned, I do believe.
So this
in
was
a
a
long
commissioned
time.
stone circle.
It was commissioned apparently by the government, and they literally.
So this is
had
a stone circle like Avebury.
Yes, yes. It's a smaller version, but it's all astronomically aligned.
I've never heard of the astronomy profession being involved with. Megalithomania, for want of a better term.
So interesting to the message that came back and what we both think it is, and
what do they think it is, and what does he think it is? I mean, what's this great message?
His great message is, you'll have to look it up word for word. I can't quote it, but something was like, we are so far away from the sun. It listed the planet, how far they were away. The message is there, what he decoded.
But is this something like the crop circle message?
It could have been. It could have been
like
quite...
that was here in Wiltshire a few years ago.
It could have been easily put into a crop circle. Easily. But you'll have to look at the actual message.
Okay, well, where do people look at this actual message? Where
they would have to go and do a deep search online, but look along the lines of Duncan Lunan, and is
that Lunan as in Lunan?
Lunan.
Okay, as opposed to L-double-O.
Yeah. And he's got some phenomenal stuff and wrote some amazing books, and is a very wise.
So what else you mentioned? I think 3. Could you go into the second one that you mentioned? Documentary, whatever.
Oh, documentary.
Or whatever you're talking about on your TV channel thing.
Right. So we've done one that's called Docuphobia, where that's more of a look of things that have been spotted in space from certain space missions and captured footage that is... Is
that on the Sky Net thing that you're talking about?
No, this is on our YouTube channel and our...
No, but what's the subject? If you want to, people want to see this...
Docuphobia.
Docuphobia.
So, docuphobia.
Docuphobia.
Like doctor, doc.
You... As in Y-O-U?
UFobia.
UFobia.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Docuphobia.
Right.
Yeah, so I helped with that, which was a great honour to help doing that.
So, okay, cutting to the chase, and you're holding a Basis mug there. There's no way that you've got this is a paid sponsorship thing. It's just a Basis mug.
Yeah, and I've done in honour. I made that myself, though.
Right.
Very
Now,
proud.
this is your husband behind you? Yeah.
It is.
Who's also recording this. But we did a little scan on the implant thing, which we're not going to show now because you got a bit of it recorded at an earlier time, and we've sort of talked about this. But what further do you want to get across before the rains come from the plains of Pewdie?
I think it's just the fact that this secret space program, I've been asked by many out there that are in the community to speak about some of my experiences.
Well, you've got the opportunity now. What are your experiences, and who's in the community that's asked you? I mean, give us
I've got
some
people
detail.
like Penny Bradley, Tony Rodriguez. Penny Bradley is a lady who has a huge connection with many things that she shares on the Secret Space program, and I'm sure people can
Penny
find
Bradley
her
is
out
a
there.
YouTube channel or what?
Yeah, she's got a YouTube channel. I forget its name now.
Is
And I
that-
know people like James Rink and Laura Eisenhower and all kinds of people. I speak to all kinds of people. I have done for many years. But I've stayed silent for many years.
Okay, well,
Because I haven't
we've
been
got a few
allowed to
minutes
speak
left here
about
because
it.
we can hear the rain coming. But,
Yeah.
I mean, what do you want to say about that before we get hammered with the rain?
I've been kept back for a long time, and I did say I would share it, and I will share it. And it's very real. It's not a joke. It's
Well, do you want to give us some leads here, what you're going to share, or have you shared it? Or
I have shared some of it. I have shared some of it. Some of it is very deep and would need another session and to go into
deep
it.
in what subject?
We're talking about races and cosmic races and technologies and things that I've tested and been part of and that I'm aware that I've been part of.
And when you say cosmic races, I mean, the big thing right now at the moment is obviously Eanna Dinan's Hybrid Alien Races book. Are you talking something of that level, or to give people some kind of reference, or what?
Yes. Eanna Dinan explains it beautifully, I think. And, you know, God bless Dolores Cannon. She tried to put a lot of it out there.
Well, the rain is coming in this autumn in Wiltshire. You've got 60 seconds. What do you want to say in your final pitch before we have to wrap this up?
That our galactic families are here, that they're with us. We are them, we're part of them. We're remembering who we are, what we're here for. And I'll keep sharing my stories as I interact with them. I won't be keeping them back.
And you'll be putting that on your YouTube channel or your
Yeah.
whatever, which is just one final hit on that. What's the website name?
SpaceLink TV, and I've got a website called Knowledge Portal TV.
Well, thank you very much. And as we can hear, the rain is here. The rains have
coming.
come. And we'll call that a day.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.